Later on, I will take you through the front page of our, there you have it, of our international newspapers. That is on the BBC. And finally, I will take you through the front page of France 24. But right about now, let's still come back home and take you through the front page of our local dailies. Let me start with the front page of the Daily Nation. Stolen Dream. That is on the front page of the Daily Nation. Stolen Dream. The story says that devolution at 10. That is what we are taking stock on. Corruption, that is the noble vision of framers of the Constitution to decentralize services to the people, has been marred by instances of devolved graft, with billions of shillings that were intended for development diverted to line the pockets of county officials and well-connected individuals. That is what's on the front page of the Daily Nation. Stolen Dream. Now, in terms of figures, in the amount of money that has so far been released to the counties since 2013 stands at 2.98 trillion shillings, and amount spent by counties since 2013 to both the recurrent and development expenditure. Of this, 1.21 trillion shillings has been spent on personal emoluments such as salaries, wages and allowances. That is 2.9 trillion shillings, and 306.6 billion shillings so far is the amount generated by counties as their own resource revenue. Most of the counties have failed to achieve their revenue targets every year. Starting with this, DG, it's good that we've been covering the issue of devolution since it started and now post this. And these are the figures. 2.98 trillion shillings since 2013. But the big question is, what can the counties show over this?
There is a lot that the counties can show. There's a lot of development. But before I go to your question,
yes,
in your weather forecasts, you always forget about Machakos. You know, Machakos was the founding capital city of this town. So kindly, you include it.
I'll take a look at the traffic.
Please don't cover the cities that came the other day and forget.
That's directly. Yes, I'll consider that.
Yes, please consider. I'm just pleading you consider. Now, to the question.
Yes.
But there is a lot to show in the devolution.
Yes.
2 weeks ago, the country was discussing a major milestone in health. An hospital in northern Kenya did the first operation. Our sisters and our mothers from most part of this country, more than half of this country, before devolution, could only talk about operation in Kenyatta, in Nairobi. Many kilometers away from the capital. But today, that is not the case. Before devolution, many roads, many feeder roads across this country were unheard of. Today, that is not the case. Before devolution, the agriculture, we could only rely on the issues touching on agriculture from Nairobi. That is not the case today. Before devolution, people are talking about water accessibility only when you have pleaded from Nairobi. That is no longer the case. There is a lot, but they are not saying there are no challenges. We have seen many people from officials, not necessarily governors or deputy governors or county executives. We have seen so many officials from across who are tasked with the responsibility to implement devolution being charged of corruption. And this is the major eventment. So, as we implement the devolution, I think we should go a long way in addressing some of these changes. I commend whoever came up with that lead story.
Yes.
Because it is now going to shift how we look at our policy as far as the devolution is concerned, so that going forward, we can even change the law and ensure a certain percentage goes to what in devolution and what goes to development. It also calls for rethink of how we structure our devolution. in my view, I think devolution was meant to devolve both power and resources. Now, this being the case, at the country level, where President Kibaki did so well in devolving both power and resources, because you remember it was during President Kibaki's that a lot was devolved to constituency level, like monies for roads, monies for energy, monies for these, women fund, youth fund, and even the CDF. I think once we are at county level, we should also see the same going to the ward level. It calls us to rethink and establish ward development fund so that every part of that particular county can receive development just like another part. So I think we should use the challenges that we have to tilt our legislation and policy to ensure we put devolution where it belongs.
Very good. I'm looking at the front page of the Daily Nation. Chrispus, Wathimba, good morning.
Thank you so much.
Good to see you.
Thank you, sir.
I'm told that by the time we were starting, you were on your way from Nakuru County.
Yes,
you must be under duress.
No.
Welcome to the program. You've just found us going on with the Deputy Governor here.
Nakuru City.
Yes.
Doing very well.
Karibu sana.
Trying to do the best we can.
All right.
This economy.
We are taking a look at the front page of the Daily Nation. Devolution at 10. We've been taking a look, stock since last week, during and now this post. Briefly, some figures here. That is 2.98 trillion shillings disbursed since 2013, and now 2.9 trillion shillings has gone into spent on personal emoluments. That is on wages, bills, allowances, and 306 billion shillings. Of course, that is part of the on-source revenue. But what do you make of the conference that happened last week? Now that it's all over, and now they have got a new model that will be happening by annual conference. But before that, the biggest issue was, how did it go? We saw it happening. It was in Gishu last time it was in Makueni County, and now it's rotational. But from your own perspective, I don't know whether you were there at the Devolution conference.
Well, I was there, and
how was it?
It was very exciting. I mean, achieving a 10-year milestone is not a small feat for devolution as a country. And also, one of the most important things we need to appreciate is that the 2010 constitution came barely 3 years before the devolution governments were first implemented. So therefore, the leadership that was implementing the devolution was a new government. They had no much experience about it. They were a new breed of administration. Everybody was new about this thing. So therefore, we were bound to have hitches here and there. But I believe we have come to understand our challenges. We have come to appreciate the potential devolution can deliver. But also, we have come to appreciate that devolution has truly brought development to the people. To what extent, it depends on which county you come from. To what extent, it also depends with the leadership you choose. And the other thing also we need to note is that a lot of the counties where a one-term governor or a governor serves one term, that affects the traction of development in that region. We have seen areas like now Kisumu, where the governor is serving his second time. He's able to exercise a bit more room in terms of delivery of his agenda, because on the second term, he's able to push his agenda. But those who are serving their first term and they are not sure of serving another one, they're not able to deliver on the very promise that they made for Kenyans, because there is a balance of, do I get re-elected next time, or do I deliver on very painful decisions that are good for the people, but the people may not appreciate.
That's a good point. Perhaps let me just ask you on that. Do you think it can be amended in such a way that a governor has 10-year full term, or I don't know what was the mind of the drafters of this constitution, because based on what you said, I see the DG saying no.
Well, in other jurisdictions, for example, in the Philippines, a president has a one term of 7 years. So therefore, once you get elected, you are sure that after 7 years, you're not seeking re-election, and you have full mandate to deliver on the promises you made. Unfortunately, in Kenya, we lose 1 year upon election, because you inherit a system that was prepared by the previous administration, and you also lose another 1 year at the end, because you have to prepare for an election. So you effectively
only 3 years.
You effectively work for 3 years. Unless now you get re-elected, then you have an opportunity to deliver maybe for another 4 years. So effectively, leadership in Kenya works very well if you get a 2-year term, but you work effectively for 7 years. So that's something we need to discuss as a country. Yes, we are young democracy. We've just enjoyed real democracy for the last 20 years. We are now enjoying devolution for the last 10 years. We need to take stock of where we have come from and see the generation that is going to inherit this system. Are they going to an election every 4 years, or they are okay? Probably we need to one election every 7 years for the people to be able to elect their leaders. Absolutely.
Naftaali Nyamongo, political analyst, karibu sana to the show.
Thank you very much.
My point is the issue of devolution. I mean, a majority of Kenyans are saying that, well, where was the big boss? The big boss was the Mwananchi. I mean, they are the direct beneficiaries of devolution. But do you think the common Mwananchi got their views expressed during that devolution?
Now, first and foremost, I feel happy appreciation for this opportunity. Now, in regard to the devolution conference which has concluded, it is true that Kenya has advanced. We have progressed as far as sharing and the devolution of power is concerned. Because when we enacted the Constitution of Kenya, the people of Kenya pronounced heavily as part of our provisions that we want the sovereignty of the people, that we want self-determination. And this self-determination has been depicted through devolved government. Now, you had so many
speakers
in our conference. Our leaders expressed their views, how they have progressed, their limitations, and I must confess that indeed we have a quality which outshines the usual. It is just to give ourselves enough adequate period so that we can accomplish what the framers of the Constitution of Kenya envisaged as far as devolution is concerned, because the sovereignty of the people, or the sovereign power of the people, has been already showcased by the Kenyans from the grassroots. So our leaders are there to guide and inspire the people with confidence, so that we can have a successful ending of our struggles. Thank you very much.
Based on that, did the Mwananchi get their voice expressed?
Yes and no, depending on who your leader is. But before I go there, allow me to say 3 things. One, today a government agency talked of functions still being performed by the national government to a tune of over 272 billion Kenya shillings. At my personal level, I believe that amount is higher than that. Now, I think that is also another one major challenge. But the good thing is the new administration ruling this country has committed to ensure within 60 days they do what has not been done in the last 10 years as far as devolving those functions plus resources are concerned. Number 2 is the tenure of the administration at the county level. I think the voters should be given an opportunity every 5 years to ensure, or whichever period, even if one is to serve for 2 or 3 years, subject that to the people. Why am I saying this? As a person who has now been who has represented people at Parliament in Nairobi and now at county level, I can tell you, if you have a good manager managing the county affairs, that county is likely to progress and the people will approve through the ballot of his or her actions. Now, subjecting that to one single term of 8 or 7 or 5 years is to invite disaster for those who are busy looting other than engaging people in development. So in this case, I think we need to be careful, bearing in mind Kenya is a developing country where money influences a lot of what happens.
Yeah.
So I think we are not yet there. Maybe in the future, but for now, as long as Kenya is a developing country where the systems of governance are not that strong, and whereby an elected leader to get him or her out of the office other than election is not that easy through other legal means, I think it will be a disaster to start thinking of a single term of all these many years at the expense of a voter.
Yeah.
Now, to your question. Our constitution dictates that anything we do, as long as it is touching on the Kenyan citizens, be subjected to a public participation.
Right.
Previously, we have seen not many people prefer that. You call people somewhere, you register them, you give them a few coins here and there, and then you go and implement what you think, but attach the minutes of the meeting you called to where you wanted. Public participation dictates that you announce publicly, we will meet in these particular areas, and you announce and you mobilize through the religious organization, through the community leadership, through the media. You make sure everybody's aware, and you also state what is expected. So that it is a quality engagement where the voice of the citizens will count. But not most of the time we see that. Some people implement what they think is what people want. But I don't think that is fair. And that's why you are seeing many counties have taken off so well, while others are still grappling. Sometimes you see a county that was doing so well, you elect somebody and then or some people, but within a year that count is crumbling. That's why you are also seeing, because of this greedy, because of selfishness, you are seeing the infights across some sections of counties in this country. Other than focusing on service delivery to the people you represent, you go there to fight. To fight who is getting what, who is doing what, who is doing this, who is not doing this. And in most cases, when you get into the bottom of the fights, it boils down to issues touching on money.
But then again, I would also ask you, Chrispus, because this one also comes because of interest. I mean, during political campaigns, DG, you went to the campaigns, and a majority of people who were behind you, everybody was expecting a piece of that meat from you. Okay, mheshimiwa, sasa umefika hapo unanipatia nini? Before you knew it, 1 year is gone. I mean, it's scrambling for this position and that. But coming to that question, do we need to have, how should public participation be, Chrispus? Because when you look at the situation, many a times some of the organizations will come with already formed opinion, the agenda is already set, the way he says, there is a file already, but they just subject that public participation as a formality. Then why should it be entrenched in the constitution then?
You know, public participation by its own making was an opportunity for the Mwananchi, the ordinary Kenyan, to be able to present his or her position in terms of public policy or public administration. Now, one of the challenges we have in Kenya, most Kenyans, the ordinary ones, they believe any political process, they must be sweetened with some money. Just like during the campaigns, they were given money to go and appear in rallies, they also want to be given some facilitation to appear in public participation forums. So therefore, what happens is that those Kenyans who are interested in providing their opinion without being facilitated are probably the ones who appear. And for the politician who has an interest, he will facilitate a few of his people to come and make a contribution. And then what ends up is that there are selfish interests that are able to prevail because, for example, even if a civil society comes there, probably it is there to present a position because of the people who sponsor that civil society, but not Wanjiku with Mama Mboga in her business, because Mama Mboga will say, me, I'm very busy with my business. I have no time to go to do this thing unless they give me 200 shillings. So therefore, we dilute the whole process of public participation because money comes before the interest that we have for ourselves. So therefore, we need to have an awareness of Kenyans understanding that public participation is the only opportunity you have to be able to correct the ills that you may have made, for example, in electing the wrong leader who made the wrong promises. If you fail to make yourself available for this process, then you are bound to suffer. For example, if you're running a business, Mama Mboga business, and they're supposed to increase the rates for the fees you're supposed to pay, if you don't show up and voice your concerns, then you are the ones who are going to suffer. Because even if the MCA comes and gives you 200 shillings, when you take that 200 shillings, you will have no voice there in that forum. It is his voice that
your voice already controlled.
So we have a challenge as a country of people understanding that your public participation does not end at the elections, at the ballot paper. It starts there. The moment you elect that leader, you must continue checking him or her until the end of his 5-year term.
Very well. Nyamongo, should we have technocrats or politicians managing the counties? That's based on what the DG said, that if you have a good manager in a county, then that county is most likely to prosper, depending on that. Let me take a break, and when we come back, we are going to get more on that, Nyamongo. And the Deputy Governor also said that I should take a look at the traffic in Machakos. I promise to do that when we come back. I promise to come back. Let's take a break. We'll be right back with more. Welcome back. Now, let me take you through the front page of the Standard here. Standard newspaper says rejected degrees. That is on the front page of the Standard newspaper. Rejected degrees. New generation of students have totally rejected certain courses offered in public and private universities, despite government clarifying that the programs are vital for Kenyans' development. According to the figures here, we have got 20,151 bachelors of education arts courses that attracted the highest number of applicants, 9,331 number of students who chose Bachelor of Education, and 5,567 number of students who want to study Bachelor of Arts, the third most popular course. And here we have 104 number of academic programs that attracted only 10 students each. And lastly, last but not least, 7 students who chose to study Bachelor of Science in Climate Change. 7. And lastly, 18, the number of degrees courses that attracted only 1 student each during the recent placement to universities. That is on the front page of the Standard. And finally, before I get into that, on the front page, something quite related to this. Are education officials trading on girls' periods? That is on the front page of the Star. Are education officials trading on girls' periods? Medics warn that poor quality could cause infection, skin irritation, and worsen stigma. There is an audit which reveals that pads for poor quality could easily fall off. That is a story that is fleshed out there for you in the inner pages here on page 4 and 5. It's a bill that has been sponsored by nominated Senator Gloria Oroba. It's a complete pullout on page 4 and page 5, something that has attracted a lot of debate across the country, having in mind that it's one of the issues that creates stigma among the young girls going to school. But let me come back to the issue of rejected degrees. It's quite saddening, gentlemen, that at this particular point, but before I get into that, Nyamongo, I ask you a question. Should we have technocrats or politicians running our respective counties? That is based on what the DG said, that if you have a good manager, then most counties are most likely to prosper.
Yeah, let me agree that if you have a good manager, a good manager may be a politician or a technocrat. So we look at the values, we look at the qualities, positive or negative, which render this person desirable or valuable in that office. And we cannot look at our values without looking at that thinking of the Constitution in regard to a state officer or a public officer. Every public officer or state officer has that social force that binds them for the courses of action demanded by that force. So we need accountability from any individual, either a politician or a technocrat. It's about it's not about the definitions. It is about that quality in a person. Now, when you see the national values and the principles of governance, these are the bare minimums which compose our nation, together with the political parties. Now, the national values and the principle of governance bind all state organs, state officers, public officers, and all persons whenever any of them applies or interprets this constitution. Now, the thinking of the framers of the constitution in regard to a state officer was about competence, number one. Number two was about personal integrity. Number three was about suitability. Number four was about these people must be able to have a judgment based on observable phenomena and uninfluenced by emotions and personal prejudices. In his own words, and you will kindly allow me to quote the late, the Honorable Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. If we are to go forward, we must go back and rediscover these precious values. That all reality hinges on moral foundation, and that whole reality has a spiritual control, full stop and unquote. Now, what we need from our leaders is that condition to be free, that freedom to act at will, not under compulsion or restraint. We need people who express themselves so that we can have devolution and access to services to our people. We don't need to define ourselves by the by big titles. We only need to focus on our mandate.
Who should we focus more on this? The freedom, the governors, the managers, or the monarchy?
The governors. A governor is a leader. A leader is any person who is disposed to lead or inspire others. So this governor or this manager in either the county or the national government must possess those qualities, desirable qualities, especially for the thing specified. And this thing is that of
And that becomes a big issue, DG, because when you talk of freedom, he's raised a very salient point there. The freedom to operate and to actually implement the policies of a county and your manifesto during campaigns. But do you really find that freedom to operate? Because sometimes you feel that your hands are tied from either because of certain policies of a county, certain ideologies from your people, certain beliefs and demands from either national government or any other arm of government, or even some of the interested parties in your area.
First and foremost, Sir Michael Porter said fish stings first from the head.
I know that better because I come from I know that better.
Number two, the late Mandela said, where you stand depends largely on where you sat. It is more of a leadership issue, because in most of the counties, if not whole, you need to have someone who understands corporate governance, who respects institutions. The last time I checked, governments around the world, our counties and government agencies included, you don't speak the way like now we are discussing issues here. But if you want to put you want to direct an officer to do something, as long as it's something that is in the policies, that is something that is law, you put a note, either an internal memo or even a letter for that matter. When you find some leaders in the name of our either deputy governors or governors who operate using their aides' phone numbers and not theirs, you know that is not somebody who is out to do anything good. Yeah, that is a criminal. I can tell you. And see when anybody, and read across the world, anybody who operated like that, These are people who are likely, whose agenda is totally different. To stick to your question, because I'm also trying to contribute in a wide way, is that you do not have to be, personally, I believe you do not have to be a doctor to lead an hospital, but you need to be a good leader. To create an enabling environment, not for hero worshipping, but to enable the people you have selected and approved by the county assemblies, if it is the case of county governments, you give them a room, an environment to operate well, efficiently and effectively. Now, if you don't do that and you are micromanaging every now and then, making calls there, you do not know what the directives you gave yesterday and today and afternoon, then you are causing chaos. So in this case, it is more of a leadership issue than anything else. Because if you know, in the issue of devolution in Kenya, county governors, they are heading all the departments, almost close to 10 of them, ranging from energy, roads, another one dealing on health. So if you demand this particular person must be an engineer, then an engineer cannot run an hospital. But what you need is leadership skills, somebody who understands corporate governance, somebody who is going to ensure there is a framework for each department to thrive. And I also appreciate these departments so that, you know, at the end of the day, it is service to the people of that particular county.
Chrispus Wathimba is an engineer.
Yes.
No pun intended. That an engineer cannot run a hospital. You can, I know.
We can. I think
in a good way. He tried to mean it that competence is what matters.
Yes.
I mean, when you look at this situation, the issue of governance and politics, it's a thin line. It's a thin line because the seat of a county boss is a political seat. But then how do you distinguish that? The moment you get into that office and now service delivery. So how do you distinguish them a little bit for the sake of service delivery?
Now, one of the biggest challenges we have as a society and any other society in the world, you find that when it comes to determining a good leader, you can only determine them by the words they speak. So leaders who inspire through their words,
they do the service
you understand, and then this person goes to office, then you give him an opportunity to do what he spoke about, and then now you're able to know whatever he said is what he's able to do. And there are those who come to office speaking very well, but they cannot do, so it becomes a challenge. And now the electorate get into despair. We elected this person, he said all this, but now he's not able to implement because probably he's not a great doer. So we have a challenge in terms of the electoral process. How able is it in terms of ciphering the very best of our leadership, so that by the time we say out of 100 candidates, we have come up with 5, and these 5 are the most promising in terms of speaking, inspiring the people, and even doing, so that when we present these 5 to the electorate, then they will have made the best choice among the crowded field. But when you come to an election, you find it is most of the time the people who make the most noise who get elected and pour or splash a lot of money that they get elected. But when these people get to office, they have either two things: continue talking, doing very little, or finding ways to recover the money that they spent in an election. Very few leaders are able to really come and execute the mandate unless they got into office with a lot of political support. For example, the ticket that they came with gave them a lot of support, despite maybe the community that they were seeking election from was not really looking forward to electing them. A good example is Professor Nyamongo. This is a person, the ODM party made sure he is elected as governor, and you can see the kind of work he's doing. So we also need the political parties to take some opportunity time in terms of sieving the type of leaders that they present in terms of candidates, so that the Kenyan voter is able just to choose among the best, not just to choose among anything, so that we don't choose a rotten head all the time, because at the end of the day we will suffer.
But again, political parties, Nyamongo, political parties can support you to the end, but it also boils down with the performance of an individual. If you are elected based on your support from the political parties, you know, as your principles, your values as a leader, but it also boils down to an individual with the kind of manifesto that you give people. Deputy Governor is not, as you said, is not one of the loudest persons I know, but he's in office anyway.
Yes, yes.
But it boils down to an individual. Nyamongo.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, allow me to speak with an honest and a sincere feeling. When you talk of a governor or a deputy governor or another political post, these responsibility do not qualify to be political seats. These are public trusts. When you talk of a public trust, it means this is a trust created for the purposes of either educational, religious, charitable, and scientific purposes. So this is public trust from any elective post must result in being consistent with the objects and the purposes of the Constitution, number one. Number two, they must demonstrate respect for the people.
Yes.
Number three, they must bring honor to the office and the dignity to the nation. And number four, they must have that public confidence in the integrity of the office. This is now what we call responsibility of a state officer, that governor. He must have that ability to serve, not to rule. And this is now is what we call discipline, that well behavior in the public office. Now, when you call it a political seat, then you change the meaning. You call it a public trust. Any leader must have that public trust from the people. The people elected them. It had that connectivity, the high affinity. The problem with Kenya is that we easily get agitated. We easily lose our self-possession. We need to have that steadiness of mind under stress, because these are the leaders whom we voted for. So we needed to give them ample time to calm down and give us their policies, to administer to us, to execute their functions and perform their duties. This must happen when we have patience in ourselves, when we have that trust and confidence in these leaders, because then we will be now in a position of sitting and watching what we did through our representatives, because these are our representatives. In fact, they are representing our views and our opinions. So we must be open and genuine, while marked by a firm and humorless belief in the validity of our opinions, which are now expressed by our leaders.
Yes.
That is now what we call sovereignty of the people.
You've raised a very good point, because the outcome of a general, the outcome of a county is as good as the leaders that we elect. And that's common sense. When we elect, the late president said that siasa mbaya, maisha mbaya. So it all goes back to us as citizens. Digi, there is a very important point that was raised during that particular conference, that some of the functions will now start slowly getting into the counties. Some of them which were still held, to some percentage by the national government, will now move to the counties. I don't know how you gentlemen received that news.
Definitely positively, because that is something that was supposed to have been done 10 years ago. But now, it is being done now. Secondly, somewhere I read that show me your friends and I will tell you who you are. I'm sure framers of our constitution, when they thought of devolution, they were thinking of an entity that will now become a center of innovation, center of transformation. But it is unfortunate, a few of our counties have been turned by leaders, cartels, and corrupt fellows to be the opposite of what is expected in our constitution. And I think all this is because maybe some people don't understand the dictates of our constitution. Chapter 6 of our constitution is a reference point. And we need to be, I'm sure a panelist here has talked of public trust in the public offices.
Yeah.
You know, when you go there to make money, when you go there to suppress, and allow me, because it is in public knowledge, to quote something that is known to Kenyans. Look at how the current administration in this country came to the office. For the first time, after almost 60 years after independence, we saw security agents throw tear gas canisters into a church, a worship place. And Kenyans stood to say that there is God who dictates what is going to happen. Now, when we have this kind of acts, even some being devolved to our counties, what are we doing? Are you telling me either that particular deputy governor or governor really understands what is expected of him or her? So in this era, I think going forward, we continue doing the way we are doing, because we are educating masses to interrogate when they go to a ballot box. First and foremost, no, yesterday Mwangangi might have given you 1,000 or this morning to influence you on where to vote. But go there and vote with your conscience, because that will dictate another 5 years, either of progress and development or the opposite of that. Okay?
Absolutely.
So in this case, I was very delighted when I heard that within 60 days, and from none other than the chief executive of this country, we are going, and publicly, not a policy that was issued, himself talking in the public, saying within 60 days, the national government will do what it is supposed to do to ensure all the counties have what they are supposed to be having, and accompanied by resources. That is very important. And at the same time, I can tell you, I think the pronouncements by our head of state are going to put so many county chiefs into problems if they are not careful.
What do you mean?
You know one thing?
Yes.
You could go to any particular, you could go to Mombasa or any county. Let me not use a specific county. You can go to county and you find in that particular county, it is like health, for example. Health is almost collapsing. Why? There are no drugs. Medics are not motivated to work. Nobody to direct what is supposed to be done. And yet, the national government is saying, we gave all the monies. So the people start asking themselves some questions. How comes we do not have water? We do not have, we are lacking healthcare systems. Yet, these people have received the whatever they are supposed to receive. They have been collecting revenue from us. So in this case, going forward, the pronouncements by the national government are going to going to the next election. So many people will be enlightened, and many will be put to where they belong. I'm
just curious, because perhaps you could just beam some light, Wathimba, because you are there, you got the first-hand info. Some of these functions that we develop, maybe some of them, and how is it going to affect the ultimate service delivery after the 10 years that we are moving towards now?
Well, as enshrined in the Schedule 14, the Schedule 2 of the Constitution, there are some 14 functions that are already devolved. So there are another around 10 of them that are supposed to be devolved, all in the same areas of agriculture, education, healthcare, and all that. Mining, trade and industry, those kind of things. So we are looking forward to a more responsibility to the governors and the county executive administration, the CECs. So therefore, what you're going to see is that more responsibility be required from the leadership of the executive leadership of the county in terms of executing the vision of the Kenya Kwanza administration. That is the whole picture. That whatever Kenya Kwanza has promised over the next 10 years, the county governments are going to be the biggest bearer of that responsibility. And therefore, if they don't have the proper governance structures, the Kenya Kwanza plan will have some serious challenges. And therefore, it is important that we now start establishing proper governance structures. And the case of Wasignishu, where people lost money, should be a classic example for those who may want to attempt to abuse power, not to do so. One of the challenges we have had in this devolution system is that we have not seen any successful prosecution of anyone, despite the various abuses that we have seen of public office. The moment we'll see one successful prosecution, that might deter those who want to abuse. But as more devolved function comes, it means more resources will come. Okay? It may not mean many people will be recruited, because whoever is being employed by the national government will probably be taken to the county government. That presents another challenge, because county administration, they were elected to reward, and probably supposed to reward some people with jobs. But now you're being told you can't reward your friends. You must inherit those who are in the national government to come and work with you. That may present a challenge, because we have seen now we have a huge wage bill that the county governments keep carrying year after year because of this patronage that they have to keep rewarding. Because I was elected, I promised some people jobs, now I have to give them job. But there are people who are already in office who can be able to do the same job. So those are some of the challenges that I am seeing, where the issue of managing human resource might be a big problem as far as the devolution is concerned.
Nyamongo, I don't know why the guillotine falls on you. Anytime I come to you, you have to take a break. It's 8 a.m. on the dot. It's a good point for us to take a very short break. And when we come back, we're still going to continue this discussion. I'll give you the last word on this. And then, gentlemen, the bipartisan talks begins today at around 10 a.m. at the Bomas of Kenya. The technical team had their point. They'll sit down a whole week to iron out some of the issues that they are going to discuss moving forward. What is it going to look like? Shortly when we come back after this break. Stay with us. Come back. We have Nyamongo in studio, Chrispus Wathimba, engineer, political analyst, and Francis Mwangangi, legislator and deputy governor representing the good people of Machakos County. Now, a quick update here that we have got at 9 a.m. we'll be having a state visit by His Excellency Joko Widodo, who is the president of Indonesia, who will be at State House in Nairobi for an official visit, and will be received by President William Ruto at State House Nairobi. I repeat that there will be a state visit by His Excellency Joko Widodo, who is the president of Indonesia, at 9 a.m. and that will be happening at State House in Nairobi. Once we are ready with that, we'll give you that live feed from the capital city here. Back to our discussion. Again, back to you. We took a break and now coming back to you. I want you to give me an overview of basically what should be happening. Behind the scenes, we're talking about the issue of it's something like a continuous wheel. The whole level of devolution must start from some point and ends at some point, but it has to go back to the beginning point. Are we realizing that?
To some great extent, yes. Because you say you need to look at Kenya now with 10 years since devolution began. And the way I see things, we are progressing, we are advancing, we are like a baby who is crawling. At some given point in time, we will now be on our feet. So, as far as devolution is concerned, governance or the devolved government cannot work efficiently without the backing or the support of the national government. And the national government cannot work efficiently without the support of the devolution. This is the interrelatedness which we have as far as our governance is concerned. Now, the president ought to discuss and consult the governance, and the governance also ought to consult the executive. This is in this way that then we will have objectivity and impartiality, and we will bring now factors, resources to drive our economy. So you cannot alienate one arm, and you cannot run away with the other. We have a team. We have a one body. Kenya is one body. Apostle Paul speaks that the body is one, but the functions are many. When one part brings glory to the body, the whole body rejoices. And when one part groans, the whole body suffers. Therefore, and just like in the words of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., that we are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. And whatever affects one in a major way affects all in a minor way. Full stop and unquote. So we need to consider ourselves. We need to have respect for our brothers, our sisters. We need to listen to one another. We need to have that sincere, that honest and sincere opening, our remarks, our relationship, how to deal with the vulnerable in the society, that acceptance, patriotism, national unity, sharing and devolution of power. That is what we need. All of us have inherent dignity and the right to have that dignity protected and respected. No one wants to be degraded. So if we accept ourselves, Kenyans together, working with one goal, to devolve our services and bring forth that what sovereignty of the people or devolution is all about, then Kenya in the next 20 years or 50 years will be a developed state.
That brings me to my topic of today, that devolution and three-tier government. It's quite open that so far we've made progress. Let's just be honest, we've made progress as a nation. 10 years from where we were 2013, we are in 2023, we have made progress. We all agree with that. In my own county, I can see some progress. In Machakos, some progress is there. Nakuru County is working, and Chrispus, you have a new responsibility. You tell us that later on, how devolution is going to work on that. But DG, how does devolution and three-tier levels government now should now work hand in hand? If at all it never happened in the last 10 years, how should they now work hand in hand so that after 10 years, God willing, we will sit down and say, this is where we were 10 years ago, and here now, where we are 20 years later. Go ahead.
In 1974, Richard Milhouse Nixon, while resigning as a president of the United States of America, said the following, and I quote, a CEO of an organization should not, in case of any failure, should not blame the juniors who exceeded either their mandate or their duties. And from that, he resigned because he took responsibility of what happened then. The levels of the government, that is the central government and the counties, should work well. I will tell you something that happened, and that's something that is making that happen. Upon assumption of office, there was a directive that the national government officials at our counties should work closely with the county government. That is happening so effectively, seamlessly, and efficiently.
Yes.
That is something that, because whether you are being served by the national government or the county government, you are the same voter. There is no need of looking like we are enemies or competing. So that is a credit I give to the current government, because the county commissioner and the county governor, when they are working well,
yes,
and even the security chiefs and other national government heads at the county level, you are able to discuss, understand, discuss even policies of what they are getting from the public, what the county is getting from the public, what each arm is doing, and you find we are moving forward as one. That was not the case before. That is something that's hindered development at the county level. Now that is a challenge which has since been addressed, and we to go to any county.
Yes.
Any county in this republic, and you will find people are working well. You remember the case of, for example, Mombasa. At one time, it was like the county commissioner there was the governor and was everything. And he had a backing of the national government. You know, you look at this and you wonder, how did it happen? Here you have people who have fought for their leader, and you have also somebody seated in Nairobi and imposing a leader onto the people. That has since been addressed, and people respect each other.
Yes.
We also need to look at the people in office. Since Kenyans have spoken by electing members of the county assemblies, by electing a deputy governor, by electing a governor, by electing all those leaders, including the head of state, I think we should be taken maybe for a refresher course every now and then. There should be a requirement somewhere to remind us we are not in this county, we are not in these positions of leadership to enrich ourselves, but to go to the public, get the
listened to that.
You see some of the things happening in this county, and
yes,
you know, by the way, I'm a scholar. Other than being who I am at the county level, I spend a lot of my time in books and and in class, and I can tell you, you read some of the things happening in some counties, you also come into experience with some leaders, and you look at, you just wonder, where does this one came from? How did you make it to this? Or it is the question of huge sums of money, you buy your way to leadership, yes, and then you don't know what to do with it. And that is what is hailing most of the developing countries around the world. Why? You have somewhere, and there's something engineer here said, which is very critical, and actually I'm not sure he knew, he thought through that point. He said, the main challenge that is affecting devolution is sometimes interested groups. You remember he said something like even civil society at a certain level, they go to represent the certain interests, especially financiers. I think it is him who said so. You know, the issue of interests in our politics is also another issue we need to address. So in this case, the first thing is for the leaders to work as a team. Teamwork is very important.
Do you criticize yourself? Do you critique yourself anytime you are in a caucus at the deputy governors? Because there's that point you've raised that there's some leaders who either they don't understand their roles properly, or they just feel comfortable. Now that we are in office, we are here, we can never be questioned because you have got security of tenure, and here we are now. Do you critique yourself anytime you are in a caucus as deputy governors, as leaders? Do you?
We discuss a lot, but you know the structure of our constitution and the structure of devolution, there is nothing a deputy governor can do. We just talk of deputy governor, but when it comes to operation,
you depend on your bosses.
That is very true.
Yeah.
Okay. And then I've seen, even I've tried to do a thorough research on why all these conflicts at our county, which are hindering development, which are hindering services to the public. You'll find it is the question of the trust we were talking about.
I like that.
It is the question. It is a question of people who sat down, agreed on something, but once they are in the office, others come in and try to usurp all that and trash whatever had been agreed and all this, you find at the end of everything, somebody feels this one is a threat, so I have to deal with her or him before that time comes. And without realizing, as much as you are trying to undermine the office of the governor, the office of the deputy governor, irrespective of how you look at it, this is somebody with followers. The war now starts down there, upwards. And by the time you people, you realize with your wars, the time has gone, nothing you have done, people have lost trust in you, and come the election, you are placed where you belong.
DJ, I love to keep that for a different debate, because that's a debate on its own. I mean, you can imagine how deep it can get, because deputy governors have complained over the years. They don't have quite distinct roles as far as the offices are concerned, and whatever they do is under the mercy of their bosses. Gentlemen, I want us to come to a close to this on this topic, but I want to give you 1 second each, Chrispus and Nyamongo, so that we can finalize. What do you make of this? 10 years later, in terms of governance, scale of 1 to 10, based on what happened last week?
Well, I think I'll give them 50% success rate so far. The only thing we need to just address is this perennial kicking out of certain leaders. You find somebody is not able to finish their responsibility because of just some flimsy political battles that the deputy governor has mentioned right here, where people disagree and they are thrown out even before they finish their work, yet they were very good leaders. That touches on MCAs, governors, and senators. Kenyans need to allow leaders to be able to develop their counties with enough time, not just planning to kick them out every 5 years. Yes.
A scale of 1 to 10, with reference to space to operate. The DJ has raised that, and I promise I'll have another discussion set for a different date so that we can discuss that moving forward. 10 years of devolution. Your assessment 10 years later?
Yeah, I will give them 4 out of 10.
That is so mean. Nyamongo.
I know why.
Why you mean to us?
Do you know why? I give them 4 because you see the violence, you see the retaliation, you see that somatic sensation of some acute discomfort everywhere, the 47 counties. Yeah. So unless then they desist from violence, unless they desist from this counter attack, returning like for like, especially evil for evil, that is the only way now they will now qualify to 5 or 6. But at the moment, it is 4 out of 10.
DG, you have a lot of work to do.
No, I think
as Devolution needs to have a lot of work to do. Gentlemen, I want us to flip pages, and thank you so much for contribution over that, because that was just a spotlight and a check on what really happened last week at the Devolution conference. It's just important to have an overview of what really happened, and we need to ask ourselves as a nation how we can even make it better moving in the next 10 years. Now, all of us are products of education. We are here because of a teacher, because we went to school. But the issue of rejected degrees, that is your request that we need to discuss about it. We need to talk about this. That's new generation of students have totally rejected certain courses offered in public and private universities, despite government clarifying that the programs are as vital for Kenya's development. Some figures here. 20,000 went for the Bachelor of Arts, that's education. 9,331. Number of students who chose Bachelor of Education, Science, and of course we have got 5,567 number of students who want to study Bachelor of Arts, the 3rd most popular courses. So I'm not seeing engineering here, engineer. You are nowhere to be seen. It's so hard to tackle.
Well, one of the things that affected this selection is the fact of the funding model that the government presented. That kind of confused many people. And when the figures were presented in terms of the cost of the course, some of these courses appeared the most affordable, and therefore they attracted the hugest numbers. Yeah. As you look at engineering, medicine, architecture, the figures were very high, 600,000, 500,000, which are numbers that scared most people to apply. As much as the government promised to provide scholarship and loans, the how to interpret that number was a big challenge to many Kenyans, and that contributed to the discouragement that many people expressed.
It was supposed to be a fee per course.
It was a fee. You see, for example, they were saying 600,000 for a certain course.
Yes.
Then the government will say, we'll give you 50% scholarship. So 300 is covered. Then they say, we'll give you 43% in terms of help loan. So we have 290 something covered. Then you as a parent, you provide 7%. But now, how sure are you that you'll qualify in that kind of a metrics in terms of contribution for fees? So most people played safe, and they went for the courses which are much cheaper, which were ranging 130, 170, 180. That's where most people played in terms of applying for the courses.
But when you look at it generally, Nyamongo, when you look at the general outlook now, we have got some other courses. I mean, we have tons and tons of courses that could be done. How does that really affect the education system? Because certain colleges, or even TVET or mid-level colleges will not have students. Like in this case, only 7 students who chose to study Bachelor of Science and Climate Change. Yeah. Only 7. Yeah. So you can imagine the number of universities, colleges across the country which will not even have a single admission.
The loophole is in the 844 system. Yeah. The 844 system is a frustrating. Where you find, I'm explaining. You find in the 844 system a student or a pupil who has completed their KCSE. They are admitted to the university. If maybe they had an A-, an A plane, or a B+ and above, you get the government admitting these students to any faculty without consultation. So because of lack of funds from these families, they have no option other than to join that faculty.
Yes.
And if you join a faculty which you don't have passion at, then it's like a waste. So the 844 system is a waste. It does not have the moral and the intellectual advancement for our children. So unless then we now begin about thinking on now to furnish and nourish and protect and nurture the curriculum in the CBC. But with the 844 system, we will be experiencing such things.
Yeah. You have a university in your county? 1 or 2?
There are around 3.
3 universities.
And maybe I think a 4th one is on. Yes, I think.
The one that was launched in Konza.
Actually, there are 3, but
the
4th one is they are about to open. Yes, the one that was recently commissioned by the head of state at Konza.
Yes.
Open University of Kenya. There is Machakos University. There is St. Paul's University, and Mount Kenya are also opening. And then there is a Scott University. So we have several institutions of higher learning within Machakos.
You have a lot of work to do, because when you look at these numbers, then you'd be wondering the number of students will be absorbed in those institutions. You are lucky enough that in your country you have got almost 4 universities.
Yes.
That's a huge number as compared to other counties which do not even have even a single university. But when you look at these numbers, what do you make of it? We are all products of education, and certain faculties do not even have a single admission. So where do they go?
I will say the following. Before I come to that point, there is no nation, there is no country that has transformed without putting education at the center.
I agree.
At independence, the founding father of this country, Mzee Jomo Kenyatta, talked of 3 issues which were supposed to be dealt with. And one of them is education. It's unfortunate we did not fix that time. We gave a loan to South Korea then to start off. And we also gave them our policy paper that we had then. Today, Kenya and South Korea are a little bit apart, but we will catch up with them. Now, But we must as a country, and I'm saying must, the word is must, we must deal with the issue of quality education for anyone who wants to access education. We must make it accessible, and we also need to do thorough civic education. And finally, I think there are so many thousands, if not millions, of Kenyans who are out there. They are educated and they have got nothing to do. In fact, to a level of even masters, and to an extent, very qualified people, engineers, lawyers, they are just out there doing nothing. So this amounts to the discouragement to education, but we need not to give up. And that's why first I thank you most sincerely for the opening topic that we have had in Devolution, because that is where creativity, innovation, and anything that business incubation that might grow to become a multinational is supposed to be focused on at that county level. And finally, I think the way we finance education in this country, it has to be a way. In my view, if you do your education up to bachelor's level, I think from there we should be having a system in place that will ensure people learn with a lot of business. We need to make our basic education very much almost free and encourage, make it almost mandatory for every Kenyan to access that particular education. So the way we finance our education also matters a lot. It is something that calls for a policy change, and the reforms in education are highly welcome. But that reforms must be geared into making every Kenyan being able to access education anywhere he or she wants. Yes.
Nyamongo, when you look at the whole structure, because at the end of the day, it's a policy that the government is going to implement at the end of the day, but look at it holistically. Education is going to depend on the number of courses that are there, but you don't have students applying for them. It's courses versus the cost. So what will happen to all these other courses? Will these universities now start saying that because we are not going to, in other words, what's going to be the ripple effect? You know, because you would imagine a university offering X number of faculties, and then out of maybe 10 or 12, only 6 are active. So you can imagine the ripple effect. The lecturers will not get jobs, you know, the assistant professors, and, you know, you look at that. So what's going to happen next?
In fact, we already see the impact, because some of the lecturers are complaining. Some of the staff, the subordinate staff, because when you look at the education, you don't eye only on the curriculum. You consider other factors, because students need skills and expertise. Apart from skills and expertise, students need economic and social rights. They need water, they need food, they need infrastructure, they need sanitation, they need health care. So with all these factors, then unless we address the Bill of Rights, because the Bill of Rights now goes into the education system. If we don't address our Bill of Rights in that framework, the underlying structure laid down by the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development, then we will miss the point, and we will have our education system collapsing. But it's not going to collapse, because already we have a remedy by the CPC. The CPC is a game changer.
Okay. When you look at this, that public universities in a sport for introducing courses that cannot attract students, that is quite alarming. And then again, some of the shunned courses are considered critical for national development. You know, the courses we call the engineering, medicine, law, etc., etc. And there is a graph here which completely explains what this really happens. Now, out of all the students, 454 students who scored A will going to take medicine. But is that the total number that we need? the question, number one. Number two, so what happens to other courses? I've not seen, out of this, I've not seen civil engineering, I've not seen other students taking, I mean, it's just a majority, the biggest number here is Bachelor of Arts Education. It's about the cost.
Just as I said, a lot of the people who apply this time around, they looked at the cost. If I don't get the government loan, if I don't get the scholarship, what will happen to my chances of getting a university degree? So they were playing safe, and they went for the courses where the price was as affordable as possible. Now, the problem we are also having as a country is, remember, initially, most of the universities were kind of specialized in one way or another. You go to JKUAT, they would specialize in technology, in agriculture and engineering. You go to Egerton, they would focus on the agriculture and those are and anything to do in that ecosystem.
Yes.
You come to Nairobi, there was engineering, there was medicine, there was architecture and all that. KU was more into art and all that. Now you find at Jomo Kenyatta University, they are teaching law. And they may not be able to attract the numbers that they desire to be able to teach that course because of the issue of funding. They started attracting these courses so that they could generate money to be able to even fund the whole infrastructure of the university. So what we need to do as a country, the same way we are greatly investing in terms of funding basic education and secondary education, we also need to put more money in this university and allow them to continue in their specialist practice so that they can give the best and quality education. Once we are able to achieve that, then the quality we produce will be able to return an investment to us as a country. But right now we are producing people who are not be able to attract the kind of jobs that the market requires. We're just producing people with degrees, but when they come to the workplace, we as employers are not able even to employ them because they don't have the competence and skills we require. If they had gone to a specialist university, then you would find that university producing the best quality that the market is able to attract and the market is able to pay for, and that payment that the reward those students get in terms of employment, then they can be able to contribute greatly to the economy of this country.
Right.
So we cannot continue producing cheap and expect that cheap to pay back itself.
All right. Let's take a break. And when we come back, we are still going to continue this. But DG requested, as we go for a break, DG requested that I take a look at the traffic situation in Machakos County. In Machakos, DG, Machakos iko sawa. When you start all the way from, yes, this is it Chumvi or Kyumvi? Chumvi.
Yes.
That is the junction headed towards Chumvi, Machakos Road. Hii place inakwanga fiti, by the way. As you pass A&L there, there's NTSA vehicle inspection. All of that particular section looking okay until you get into Machakos town. Around that Machakos level 5, there's a bit of some traffic because of when you join the roundabout around Naivas and Ngei Road. That's where the problem is, a bit of that. But so far so good. And heading towards Makutano Kitui Road, kila kitu ni nyue. In fact, this one, you can, watu wa Mathiri wanasema you can have avocado on the road and then slide until Kitui. So DG, so far, so good. I think we should go to Machakos after this. Chrispus, what do you think?
Definitely.
Definitely, we should.
Express highway.
Yeah, express highway. DG,
30 minutes to be there.
we need to go to Machakos after this. How about Nakuru? Another request from Chrispus himself.
Yes.
Nakuru iko sawa. Let me just save that. We'll talk on that when we come back after this break. Okay, gentlemen, let's take a break. When we come back, we'll be having another link from the Kenya Aviation Authority. They're having their AFI Week, that is Indian Ocean and Africa Aviation Week, that is happening here, and the President will be presiding over that function. But for now, let's take a break. We'll be right back with more. Stay with us. Come back, and we are still continuing with our discussion here on Iron Politics. I got Naftaali Nyamongo, who is a political analyst, engineer, Chrispus Wathimba, who will give us his next title of being an engineer, and Deputy Governor representing the great people of Machakos, Francis Mwangangi. Gentlemen, we have something happening today at the Bomas of Kenya. The bipartisan talks will start their discussion in the next 2 hours or so. Their technical teams had to sit down the whole of last week to iron out the issues that they really wanted to be part of their point of reference. And I don't know what you make of this. Let me start with you, DG. They had their technical teams iron out their issues, their terms of reference. So, are we good to go now?
Yes, and I want also to say it is good we put our country first in all these discussions. I'm on record saying in the wisdom of those who set up those two committees, they had this country at heart, because there was no way the current administration could focus on developing this country when the same Kenyans are out in the streets. Now that we have that committee there, I think I will be forging for strengthening further devolution. As the technical committee tries to do to tighten up here and there, I think as much as we are focusing on national issues, we also focus on strengthening devolution. And how do we do that? Yeah. Because that has been the center of discussion this morning. In my view, we need to look at ways to make our county assemblies autonomous financially. We need to, because that will increase their capability and capacity to manage their own affairs and to represent the people elected them effectively, to also oversee what the executive is implementing objectively, and also ensure they are not micromanaged from any quarter. Number two, I think it is through this committee, I think in whichever reforms they decide to focus on, the two sides of the current opposition and the government had proposed to entrench the World Development Fund alongside the CDF into the constitution. I think we need to do that. This is the time now. This is the moment to do that, so that we first strengthen devolution further, and finally we address the issues that will ensure going forward we will not go to an election and then the following week, the following day, we start seeing people in the street. If we can engage Kenyans and ensure that is addressed, I think we will be moving in the right direction as a country. Yeah. Yes.
Chrispus, your opening remarks on that as we speak.
Well, what I will just say is that I would want to see the bipartisan talks focus on nation building, as opposed to an attempt by one coalition that lost in the election trying to push its manifesto being implemented by those who won. What I'm saying, the Azimio manifesto should not be part and parcel of this discussion. The discussion should be about Kenyans and Kenyans only. The other issue I would also want to request the Kenya Kwanza people is not to take a very extremist position. We need to tone down. The country is healing. Let us allow the people who are carrying out the discussion to be able to give us a very sober and open deliberation that we are also able to participate in one way or another, so that we can be able to build and carry this nation forward as a people. I would also request the president and the principal of Azimio, Raila Amolo Odinga, to just tone down and allow the nation to focus on this discussion without their voices being heard, so that we can be able to have a very objective discussion being carried out by the leaders of that discussion. Yes.
Nyamongo, let me take you through a page here. On page 6 of the Star, Ruto team sends mixed signals as bipartisan dialogues resumes. Now, they say that the president's men are asking him to abandon the talks with Azimio and focus on nation building. On the other hand, high cost of living will top agenda at the Bomas. That's according to former CS Eugene Wamalwa. Where are we?
Yeah. Now, you first begin by differentiating discussion or dialogue or talks from mediation and reconciliation. When we have the bipartisan at Bomas, we are expecting discussion or a dialogue. This is a conversation between two people or groups. So if we had a neutral party there, like now Obasanjo, it will not be discussion, it will be mediation. Mediation is when you have a neutral party to aid in solving disputes of two disputants. by facilitating the conversation, so that the two groups will come up with their own recommendation.
Is there a dispute?
And there is a dispute because one group says that they won an election and they have a plan for Kenya, and they have this plan and are ready, apprehending and responding with speed and sensitivity to bring forth what they have for the people. On the other hand, the other group is saying you never won fairly.
Yes.
And even though then you are in power, these are the issues. We have the living standards. So there is a dispute between Azimio and the Kenya Kwanza. Let us be honest about it. Now, whatever is being done at Bomas is a step which has a quality that outshines the usual, because it is a show of the love of our country and a willingness to sacrifice for it. Because they want equality for us to be united as one, and this is true that it is true that we, the people of Kenya, have the right or power to make our decisions and give orders through such platforms.
Yes.
And this has come as a judicial authority. When you look at Article 159, it stipulates judicial authority. Now, to be in particular, Sub-Article 2, in exercising judicial authority, the courts and the tribunals shall be guided by the following principles. C, alternative dispute resolution, including reconciliation, mediation, arbitration, and the traditional dispute resolution mechanisms shall be promoted subject to clause 3. Full stop. So it means reconciliation is part of our system. Mediation is part of our system. Arbitration is part of our system. No one must deny people to sit down. No one must reject people to sit down and have their mind recollected for the purposes of unifying this nation. It may look disadvantageous to one side, but it's not, because at long last, when you have the two groups seated, then they will come up with their own recommendation. The final settlement or agreement will be as a result of their contribution. No one is there.
And Chrispus would ask you, what are they mediating over? What are they arbitrating over? What's the reconciliation all about? I mean, that's the question. Because both sides are claiming victory over the last general election. That is the whole issue here, gentlemen, over election. And when you listen to what Eugene Wamalwa said yesterday, if I could just paraphrase, he said that these positions, as Azimio, DG, you'd also probably help me here, that Azimio is not looking for nusu mkate in this government. They have said that. But they need certain positions to be spread across the country. I don't know how this is going to happen, and yet the government is fully formed and it's moving on. Chrispus, before I come to you, Gigi, come kindly. Yes.
And that's what I said. There should be no attempt of Azimio trying to impose its position on Kenya Kwanza through this dialogue. Azimio must accept that they lost the election, and Kenya Kwanza are the leaders of this government right now. Once they agree that, then we have no issue about mediating about anything. Because if the mediation that should be mediated, if there was a disputed election, which was determined by the Supreme Court, we don't have any disputed election. So if there is any issue that they need to discuss, it should be cost of living. And probably the issue of IEBC and commissioners' determination how they come into office. Those are some of the issues I can see maybe they disagree. But you see, cost of living, Kenya Kwanza has a plan. So they should be allowed to deliver on their plan. They cannot be imposed to do, for example, subsidy of buying cheap food, as opposed to what they are doing right now, subsidizing production, which now they are looking forward to their first harvest or from the subsidy they give in terms of fertilizer. So Azimio cannot attempt in one way or another to impose their plan on Kenya Kwanza. So in terms of mediation, I don't see. The only thing I would look forward to is nation building. We need to heal. We need to see communities working together.
What if the talks at the Bomas of Kenya are part of the healing?
That should come out clearly.
I'm just asking. What if
that should come out clearly?
Yeah.
There are people who are hurt in this country. We have seen clashes all over happening right now. We need to heal as a country.
I know there are some people who are also depending on that bonus by party support for them to heal. There are people who are waiting for them, okay, what will come out of this?
But you see, if they were promised that probably some of them will join government, that is wrong.
Okay,
the healing will not come by getting a quarter of the bread, not half.
I can't authenticate that. DG.
When it comes to the bombers,
yes,
I have a different opinion from engineer, and he represents the thinking of so many, not so many actually, very few politicians in this country. That is, I don't think the question of you won unfairly, you did this as far as elections is concerned is the issue of discussion here. What I know, and everyone, almost every Kenyan agrees, we have had since 1992, this country every 5 years has had an issue in any part of this country arising from elections. We have had challenges but the beauty of it is every election we do our own internal audit and we continue improving on our electoral systems. So when a section of this country says, let's audit IEBC, it is not to determine if the president won or he did not win, if a governor won or he or she did not win. That is not the point. The point is we use whatever we will get out of this audit to strengthen electoral process and system in this country going forward. Because it is very costly, Victor. It is very hard for anybody, any existing business here in this country to expand the way they should. Because they don't know after the next election cycle what will happen. And that is the only way out to have a national cohesive country where people will go out there, vote with a lot of trust. Their vote will count. Now, the second thing is about the engineer keeps on referring to nation building, and then he confuses himself that we have a plan to implement, so there is nothing to discuss. Which plan are you going to implement and where when people are in the streets? It is the interest of every leader in this country that we need a peaceful environment for any government, whether county or national, to execute that mandate. And I believe in the wisdom of those who established the two committees in the bombers, that is what they were looking for. Nation building you cannot achieve nation building when you have a section of country having some issues, are dissatisfied, they don't even appear like they are trusting the government in place. In fact, what is happening in the bombers is going to bring a lot of stability into this country. Now, in international view, and I can tell you as a developing country, it is very hard to just come up with a system that will observe every graduate in this country. That is not possible. We must combine internal investment with external investment so that we can have so many farms in this country who are going to observe the unemployed population in this country. How are you going to do that when I know I cannot invest my $1 billion into that particular country because I don't know, I have an unforeseeable outcome after the next election? We need to stabilize this country, and I believe that is the focus of the head of state. It is good, and I appreciate what Kenya Kwanza section of leadership are saying, that don't divorce your issues. We won, we did this, it is good. They keep on reminding us, but that is not what we are after. Because I think the opposition has stated clearly they do not want a percentage of Nusu Mkaze, nobody. And we are saying let's improve on our systems of governance in this country. Yes.
Gentlemen, do you agree with me that there are some places in this country, some wards, which a by-election was supposed to be done has not happened yet because we don't have an active IEBC in place. So what legal battle are we looking at here? Because Nobody's talking about them. I mean, a by-election was supposed to happen. We had the late member of parliament who died a few months ago. There's no by-election yet. The IBC itself has not been constituted, and part of the talks is just to restructure the IBC system. Nyamongo, what are some of the legal tussles are we looking at this particular point? Can anybody move to court?
Yeah, of course, under Article 22, enforcement of the Bill of Rights, every person has the right to institute court proceedings, claiming that a right or a fundamental freedom in the Bill of Rights has been denied, infringed, or is threatened. Or every person has the right to institute court proceedings, claiming that this constitution has been contravened or is threatened with contravention.
Yes.
So when you see the gap, we need to have by-elections, and they are not happening because we do not have a proper and independent body, IBC. Then it means there is a lacuna. Then a person ought to move to the High Court to seek guidance by the judiciary.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm looking at a situation, gentlemen. Help me understand this. Did we see a situation where, if even in the constitution itself, where there is a vacuum in a constituency, in a situation like we are in right now, there is no IBC in place, there's a constituency without any representation, and there is a political tussle that has actually stagnated the electoral process for that particular constituency to have their representative. Do you think we should have something like a caretaker kind of leader in a constituency in a scenario like this one, and how would it be? I'm just trying to think out loud. Chrispus.
But why should we have this kind of situation in the first place? We already have a constitution.
It was never preempted in the constitution.
Yeah, we have already a constitution that is able to predict at the point where a commissioner will come, another one will exit. There's a process how they'll be recruited. It's just that right now, the whole process has been scuttled because of certain
let me cut you short. In the case of the president,
yes,
there's a provision there.
There's a provision for...
In the case of a governor, the deputy governor can step in, etc., etc. What about a constituency?
So what we need to ask ourselves,
yes,
in the case where there's an MP is not there, what the people are lacking is representation. And probably ability to oversight the national government through their own member of parliament. And probably their member of parliament contributing in terms of legislation. Those are the areas that they would lack. But are they really deprived in terms of government services that they're supposed to get from the national government? No.
What do you mean? I mean, there is.
The government, the national government has its own services. It has all men and women.
The disbursement of bursaries happened a few months ago.
But you know, CDF is not the function of an MP. The CDF committee runs that function. The MP is a patron. He's supposed to provide some oversight. So therefore, the CDF can still continue, even if there's no MP, as long as there's an oversight committee there to charge them. So the areas that are lacking is the representation, legislation, and probably the oversight the MP would do. The other national government services are still available to the people of that area, and the county government services are also available. Yes. So they are not as deprived as maybe when you don't have an MP, I mean a governor or a president sitting. Yeah. But I think my biggest problem with this whole issues about every time having a contested election is that it has happened for the last 5 times in the last 20, 30 years. But consistently we've done an audit of ourselves and come up with new proposals. But the proposal never seemed to cure the whole challenges that we have an election. So is it the processes that are a problem, or is the people that are in that process that are the problem? So we need to ask ourselves, because we have audited ourselves many times, 2007, 2013, 2017, 2022, now we are still auditing ourselves. When will it stop as a country? When will we move on? 1997, we had IGPP, the Interparliamentary Group. We have always audited ourselves. We cannot be a country that audits and audits all the time. We need to be a country that is able to implement our proposals, see them grow, and become something. Then we can come and reevaluate them.
Yeah. The same way you are saying that the devolution itself is a work in progress.
It's a work in progress.
Then what's the problem? Where's the problem of auditing ourselves in terms of matters to the election?
The electoral process that we went through recently.
Why should it have an audit with the finality? If the devolution itself can give it
the
space.
Electoral process that we went through in 2022, I think it has been validated not only by the Supreme Court, but even the international community. It was transparent. So let's now carry that one forward and see that it gives us another election.
Okay. DJ, what do you make of that? The issue of international community raised a lot of heat about the Devolution conference last week. Let's not go there.
One, it is the continuing audit is a very important thing, because we are living in a world that is changing more often. And in those changes, you will find new technologies being improvised. Doing an audit is very important for actually, even IBC does this. Others are hired to assist in doing the same. And in every of those audits, they come up with a proposal on how to make it better. Yes. Because in the course of that election, you learn, you come across one or two challenges here and there. Now, I think it is very important, very, very, very critical. And like what my colleague is saying, I also want to inform engineer, it is a requirement. In the absence of a member of parliament, CDF doesn't function. And it is very important, very critical. So in this case, I think it is good we argue on a point of knowing and the correct position. So immediately, in fact, you can find out from that constituency without a member of parliament. Even the committee stopped meeting, and they are waiting until a new member of parliament is elected and sworn in. That is the time they start their functions. Allow me, now that we are discussing this issue of representation, that I also passed yesterday, the day before yesterday, a ward in Machakos lost a member of county assembly, actually specifically Mombone North.
Sorry for that.
And it is so painful, because that was one of the reliable leaders we had, very, very mature, a very good leader. So I pass also my condolences to the people of Mombone North. Now, finally, I think when we are talking of the issues of representation, oversight, and legislation, those are very critical. They are basic human rights, if I can say so, as far as issues of leadership are concerned. It is very important that we look away, because the question was, in the absence of this elected leader, now what happens? Especially when we have this stalemate. I think in a way, we might need to put the way we are put at the issue of at the president level or at governor's level, in a way that the functions of this particular leader, in the case he or she is not there in the office continues to function under patronage for certain period, not forever, because people can create some scenarios so that they can act forever. I think it should not go for a certain period when Kenyans will decide. So in this case, Victor, I think it is very important we relook at that clause of our legislation, so that we can have continuity in the event these leaders are not there, but for a certain period of time.
All right, the 10-member technical committee was formed last week so that they can iron out some of the thorny issues as pertaining this bipartisan talk that is going to start in the next in the next 1 hour, because it's supposed to start at 10. So we'll be taking a look at that shortly, but right about now, let's take a break, and we'll be coming to the final end as they give their final remarks to this discussion. Stay with us. We'll be right back with more.